Welcome to season 42 of Survivor. It's just like season 41, except we've got a new set of players. I thought that they would probably go with some of the themes from 41, but this feels like an absolute direct ripoff of last season. Let's get a little more. Let's get some new ideas flowing here. Keep the fast pace, but don't just use every other twist that we already saw. Keep it fresh and keep it moving. This is honestly my notes. My first note that I have for the show. I might have to cheer for Zach. Well, that didn't age very well. I mean, I didn't even get through one episode and the poor guy's gone. And the reason I wrote that is I loved his first little interaction there with Jeff. You know, it was kind of a pretty cute moment on the show and really just showed how excited he was to be on the show. Plus, he's a little nerd and I love everything nerdy. We get hit with the first twist of the season real early. Slight variation onto some of the things we saw last season, but still very similar in nature. So 3 players have to decide if they're going to take an advantage or not. Of course they take the advantage. Like, why wouldn't they take the advantage? This one is called the Amulet of Advantage, and the way it works is all 3 people who took the advantage will have to work together to use it. If there's 3 of them still in the game, it is an extra vote. If there's 2 of them still in the game, it is a steal a vote, and if only 1 person remains, it is an idol. So kind of interesting because this is something that almost encourages you to knock out those other 2 people. Very interested to see how that plays out. Daniel, in that first challenge, he gets injured immediately. Like his shoulder gets dislocated immediately, but good that the medics were able to pop it back in for him, and hopefully it's not something that affects him for the season. You know, you never like to see somebody taken out of the game for medical reasons, and you know, it would be a sad way to see Daniel's journey. And I love the line where I forget who it was, one of the 3 in that first twist, and he came back and he was covered in that fake blood, and somebody just said, why did that guy say, or like, why are you bleeding? Because he just took the fake blood and he was just like, rah! And it's like, no, you're supposed to like just mix a little bit in, so people are like, oh wow, they were going hard over there. And also, I was really waiting for somebody to ask, hey, what did you guys have to do? What did you 3 have to do over there? Jonathan. Immediately, he's like the physical threat of the season. Like, not playing it down at all. He's just going as hard as he possibly can right out of the gate and all through this first episode. In the end of this initial challenge, Ica Tribe has the comeback victory. And let's just talk about Ica a little bit. So they got a group of young players, Swathi, Tori, and Zach, and they all seem to like have that little nerdy connection. And as I mentioned earlier, I like nerds, so I'm immediately drawn to this trio. Didn't last long. Romeo, Roxoy, and Drea, they kind of end up on the other end of the alliance. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like, well, they're probably making an alliance, so why don't we make an alliance? Roxroy, he kind of ends up being like the foreman of the camp. You know, he's not given like dad vibes. Like, I know that he's a stay-at-home dad, but that's not the vibe we're getting from him on this show. You know, he's like more of like the drill sergeant, foreman, manager, whatever. He's running the show and telling everybody when they're stepping out of line. Not sure that's the best strategy. And honestly, I'm surprised that it didn't bite him in the ass in the end of the episode. We also had the Skinny Boys alliance between Zach and Romeo, which was fun for about the 5 minutes that it lasted. Jumping over to Vati. So now the other two tribes, Vati and Taku, since they didn't win that initial challenge, they have to earn their supplies. And given a choice between Sweat and Savvy, and if I remember last season, we saw something similar, and both tribes, I believe, picked Sweat. This time they both picked Savvy. So that was kind of interesting. So same twist, different result. So they decide to count the triangles, and it just goes a little awry right out of the gate until Jenny starts having to give a lesson to everybody about what a triangle is. It was kind of funny, but after that, they kind of divide their resources a little bit and just have the people who actually know what a triangle is start solving this puzzle. Mike, he ends up being the camp superstar after they forgot to mention they did earn the supplies from getting the triangles right. Mike ends up being the superstar at camp day one. You know, similar to Jonathan, I don't know how much you want to stick out early on. Not sure if it's the best strategy to stick out as a physical threat, even if it's just making the camp early on, because at some point in the game, people start looking at the physical threats and trying to take them out. Vati tribe ends up kind of splitting into pairs. We have Mike and Jenny, they team up, Daniel and Chanel, and Lydia and Hai. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves once we actually get into Vati a little bit more and seeing them actually have to head into tribal. Taku, they're also doing the triangles, but they immediately split into two groups, send the people who are not the puzzlers off to start working on the shelter. And I think that was a good strategy for them because, you know, in some of those puzzles, like people who aren't visual in that manner, like people, you know, like if you see that puzzle and you're like, I have no clue what's going on, don't do the puzzle. And that was what was great about Taku. I think they're really working well together early on. You know, helps that they have someone like Jonathan who can carry a lot of that physical load here early on in the season. But yeah, that's about all we got for Taku. Now we get another twist similar to last season where a boat shows up at each tribe and one person has to get in the boat. We see Jenny, Drea, and Mary Ann get on the mystery vote and they get to the risk your vote, protect your vote twist. In the end, Jenny decides she's going to protect her vote while Mary Ann and Drea risk it to earn an extra vote. So next time they go to tribal, will find out that they have earned a extra vote. After this, we see Jeff show back up to Taku, and like this is pretty unusual for Jeff to actually go to one of the camps, and he needs to have a one-on-one talk with Jackson. And this is right on the heels of us hearing Jackson's story about transitioning, losing his relationship with his family and his mom getting sick, and his mom getting sick being the catalyst for bringing his family back together. So right on the heels of that, Jeff comes, pulls Jackson aside, and we find out that he's been weaning off of lithium, and it is going to be a hazard for his health, and for safety reasons, he has to get pulled from the show. So first person to leave the game ends up being Jackson. Wasn't expected, and just like the Daniel situation, you never want to see this happen to anybody. It's not game related, but it is something that affects Jackson's safety while being out there, and really the show just doesn't have a choice in this situation. All right, let's jump over to immunity. So the way this works is the winners and second place are going to get immunity, and whoever comes in last, not only do they have to go to tribal, but they will also be losing their flint. In terms of who was going to get last, I don't think that this was in question for any moment during this entire immunity challenge. Taku and Vati, they were the ones battling for the win. Taku took the early lead. Vati, they get to the puzzle first, and Taku catch up and pass them on the puzzle for the win. But Vati is right there behind them for second place. Meanwhile, Aika, they're last out of the water. They're last getting their chests into the boat. They're last getting their boat up the ramp, and they weren't even close for the puzzle. And one thing that's strange about this to me is, so they're now going to tribal, and they've adopted this strategy of we need to send the weakest person home. And what I saw was a complete failure by everyone in that tribe. That was start to finish a total disaster. And they end up placing the blame on Zach, who was doing the puzzle, because that was the most visible thing at the end of the challenge. Was that the reason that they lost? Absolutely not. I actually think they caught up a little bit on the puzzle. They weren't in contention to get second place by any means, but they were so far behind. And, if like what Dreo said, that Roxroy just kind of quit out there, that's the weak link, not the guy who couldn't catch up and pass the other tribes on the puzzle. Tori addressing the idol situation, I thought could have really backfired on her, and I felt it was a pretty questionable decision from her, but ends up working out. Like, I thought, what a weird strategy. You're heading into tribal, and then you just bring up this controversial topic about yourself. It just doesn't seem like good gameplay to me, but she was able to sway Drea and get her get on the same page as her, which ended up in Zach going home. Roxroy also had his name briefly thrown about, and honestly, I think that he probably would have been the better choice for that tribe to send home. But with how everything played out in camp, I don't think they ended up with any choice but to send Zach home. Zach did use his shot in the dark, did not work out for him, and like he said in the post interview, is he will be the first ever unanimous vote in Survivor history. So that is kind of cool for him, even though it's not really cool being the first person voted out. All right. Sorry for being a couple days late on this. I will try to be on Wednesdays from now on, but circumstances, they happen, and sometimes you get a little bit late. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we will see you later.